my boots. Beautifully cleaned, as you can see. I think they're about to enter I think it might even be it's probably their third winter. I keep thinking it's their fourth winter, but it's their third. They weren't cheap. And this is why I'm showing them you, because they weren't cheap. I think they were €200. But I wear them all winter. I have very difficult feet to please. I have pain in my feet. I've got special inserts in these. They're a wide fit and around my toes because I feel everything that is on my foot. And that's why I bought them. And I felt really bad when I bought them for that price. And it was, well, 3 years ago, if I'm about to enter, well, I won't mention winter or autumn. I've upset someone by talking about it. It feels autumnal. But these will be doing their third winter, and we're planning a trip to Canada in May, and these will come with me to Canada. Very practical. Be able to go down to the chicken run in those, get covered in chicken shit. And when I'm not wearing those, and then when I'm not wearing my sandals, I'm wearing my Crocs. No skanky hoe shoes for me. I don't know whether that's what Jules meant. Skanky hoe red. I think she probably meant skanky hoe shoes. No, she didn't. When I put this on, I get an itch in the middle of my head. I think that I'm so sensitive to anything. There's a little bit of thing sticking out there. So you have seen this. Drop the paper. You've seen the cycle race, which was fun. I had to my phone was full of storage, and I was recording, and I recorded 8 minutes of very little, and then it stopped and said your storage is full. So I had to do some jiggery pokery, not realising that when I removed stuff from storage, it goes into the recycle bin, so it's still stuck, clogging up the internal storage. So, and I didn't know that. I've just gone in and sorted that. Oh, excuse me, because I was going to come out here and film, and so I recorded about 8.5 minutes of very little. There were the odd gendarmes coming up on their bikes and the odd car coming through, but what was comical, and I've decided not to share it for this reason, is that just before, I don't know whether you can see him, I think I moved the camera so you can see the tractor wheel, I think, and you can hear the race marshal, who's an old bloke, very old, typical old French peasant, with the most incredible patois, because I could hear him talking across the road, and it was a very, very strong patois. But him next door came down with his tractor and his Bowser, wanting to cross the road to go down to the fields to take water to his sheep and his horse and his donkeys, and he wasn't allowed to cross the road. I mean, it was quite amicable, but it was just so funny to see him, because the way that my camera was facing at that point was sort of pointed, and it included the hamlet, and he came chuntering down with his fag in his mouth, and it was just comical. And the Vincent, our other neighbour behind us, so I just thought I could see a dead rat over there. I have to go and investigate. I'm sure it isn't. The mayor said, "Oh, here they come," and I went, "Yeah, here he comes." So there was that sort of standoff for a bit, and then our other neighbour Manuel came down and made himself comfortable to watch across the road. But then the camera, the telephone said, "No, I can't do any more. Too full, storage is full." So I stopped. I'm quite pleased there was nothing special on there, really, apart from the comedy. And probably better that I didn't publish it anyway, so I haven't done. So you would have seen what I did publish, which was, I suppose, a small taste of what it can be like if you're along the route of the Tour de France. I don't know whether you can hear me, but I'm pretty disappointed they're not throwing sweets at me. They threw nothing. Or actually, just at the last minute, one of the cyclists threw his drinking bottle down, and then somebody chucked one, and I think it hit my tripod. I don't know. I wasn't really I was paying attention, but by then I'd got my hand on it because I was about to get up and turn around. I don't know whether that was a deliberate aim. But anyway, it was a bit of excitement, and with it being just at the end of the road, it made sense to go down there. So we did. You haven't seen the cat yet. I'll do that. That's only a little video, but I just thought I'd talk about before. Somebody said to me in comments, telling me not to get so agitated, the if you look at the meaning for agitated, it suggests that I'm nervous or anxious or something, and it's like, oh, fuck off, I'm not agitated, I'm outraged. And I think quite often men will describe when women get angry and assertive and, you know, say their bit, men like to suppress it by describing it as something else. You know, don't be emotional. Well, it's like, fuck off, I am emotional. I'm angry, and you know that I'm angry, and I have good reason to be angry, and I'm not going to say it again. No, it's not. No, I'm not going to say it. Most of us know that I'm not jealous. I can't imagine what I would be jealous of. I really can't. Anyway, on to shit. I put in my little shorts that said coming up, I mentioned shit, and I got a warning, so I had to change it to raw sewage, and that is what I'm going to talk about. But you know me, I like to shock. And I did a little bit of searching, so I've got a bit of paper because I had to do a little bit of searching, and it is only a little bit. But I was watching Michael Lambert last night, who was also talking about it as part of a video that was about many things, but towards the end of it, he was talking about the raw sewage that's being dumped into the sea in the UK. And I was remembering that even though he's saying, and I thought this was the case, that it's that now we're talking Brexit, now that the UK is no longer regulated by the EU, the discharging of sewage into the rivers and seas is now deregulated. It would seem, this is just on what I thought I heard Michael Lambert saying and what I thought I understood. I could be wrong, but it sounds like the water company's now taking the piss, or, well, yeah, the piss. And what I found when I was searching was that in 2009, the UK faced the European Court for allowing raw sewage into the Thames. I thought I'd remembered stuff from way back. I mean, that's 2009, that's a long way back. And I think I remember something from 2 years ago, maybe, where they were, you know, just letting that happen. And there's always an excuse. In Time Out, it says that East Sussex has closed beaches, and a further 50 beaches across the UK are contaminated. East Sussex has closed all its beaches, and there are a further 50 beaches across the UK that are contaminated. Isn't that disgusting? You know, it's still summer. People are still on holiday. And I used to joke, when I lived in Kent, one of my nearest beaches was Folkestone. I think they called it Golden Sands. The one with the arches at the back, you know, and I used to take the kids there. We used to take the kids there in winter. They used to dig in the sand. And I remember saying back then, and I don't know whether I was copying somebody, but saying something about that swimming in that sea there is more, not quite swimming, it's more going through the motions. And my God, that is what's happening. You know, it's an area, you know, the people are being advised not to visit these 50 contaminated beaches. What's happening to all the tourists? What's happening to the tourist industry? What's happening to all the visitors? What's happening to the people that usually use the beach and swim in the sea? It's disgusting. Meanwhile, the bosses of water companies are receiving around about 600,000 in bonuses. First of all, I'd written down 1,000, an average of 1,000, but then I kept reading and saw several things about 600,000. So 600,000 on average in bonuses. and they've seen their pay rise by 20%. And finally, I've written down, raw sewage was discharged into the rivers and seas 375,000 times in 2021. Something to be outraged about. Something to be outraged about that isn't Stephanie. Something to be outraged about that isn't shoes. It's Brexit, though, isn't it? It has to be the. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure it's just Brexit. I think that the UK has a government that's not really looking any longer, especially now. Especially now, Boris has been on holiday twice and is now having a party at Chequers. Apparently, nobody is really working the civil servants are all taking holidays, making the most of it before the next parliament starts. And it's as if there's nobody actually at the wheel. Do you think that's true? Do you think there's nobody at the wheel? Isn't that frightening? That you're cast adrift by a really, really failing government. You're cast adrift and drifting into God knows what. Well, we have an idea. We have a lot of people, a lot of commentators saying drifting further into poverty, because you're not drifting into poverty. There are so many people in poverty. Drifting further into poverty, drifting into not being able to heat your home, drifting into bills you can't pay, drifting into food you can't afford to buy to eat, drifting into children becoming even more malnourished. And I glimpsed something last night that I sort of haven't really qualified this, but it reminded me that, have we looked at the suicide rate lately? I'm sort of watching Ida. She looks like she's camouflaging herself behind the sumash as she's eating it. But I wonder what the suicide rate is in the UK. I wonder what it was last winter. I wonder what it will be this winter. And if you leave heating bills aside, if you leave food bills aside, if you leave fuel bills aside, and think about how people are no longer getting their healthcare needs met as quickly as they used to. People dying on trolleys, people left lying on trolleys in corridors, ambulances sat outside hospitals with a patient inside, meaning they're no longer able to go and pick another patient up. I remember mother-in-law, when was it? 2 years ago, maybe, she fell. She fell in the night. Her daughter was there, Mark's sister, and it was 3 or 4 hours before the ambulance came out, and that was 2 years ago. And she was in a lot. I mean, she didn't break anything. There was no sign of any fractures, but she was in a lot of pain for months afterwards. Had to go into hospital, then had to go to rehab, and then ended up in a care home, and that's where her life, where she was when she died in December last year. She was 96. I have no doubt that. I don't think she'd still be alive now. I don't think that made a massive difference. But she's just an example of, she waited 3 hours on the floor, to be picked up by the ambulance and taken to hospital. And 3 hours when you've fallen and you're laying on your side on a hard floor when you're 96 is a long time. And I'm sure 18 months, 2 years on, the weight on the floor is probably now 6 hours. It's terrible. It's terrible. So there we have it. There are my bits and pieces for today, and you'll get them tomorrow, and you might get jazz later. My boots might get cleaned sometime. My man indoors does the cleaning of the boots. They're very comfortable. I love them. But they're certainly more suitable for rural life than anything else.